Hi, social studies teachers of Iberia Parish. My name is Mestayer-Kidd, and I was one of 3 people on the committee to help redo the common assessments for 7th and 8th grade social studies. Here on the screen, you see something called a performance task. We've done one for each unit, and as you can see on my screen, we have tabs. Not sure how you guys are going to get this information, if it's going to be PDF all together, but we wanted to break down our thought process when we created the performance task. In the Bayou Bridges manual, there's a performance task. You'll probably notice that our questions might be the same or might be a little bit different than the actual question in the performance task for Bayou Bridges. We wanted to make sure that the question had a big enough range and it could appeal to different levels of academic understanding. So here's our first question. Whose presidency had the greatest influence on the development of the United States? Washington, Adams, and Jefferson. Give specific examples. This is word for word from Unit 1 Bayou Bridges, but as you go throughout the 7th or 8th grade performance task, you'll notice that our wording and our questions vary a little bit. We added here a whole bunch of sources, and as you can see on this first tab, we have the sources. You can decide as a teacher if you're going to gear your kids towards a specific source. Maybe if you're an inclusion teacher, you might decide and pick the sources and tell your students to work on those. If you have kids at a little bit higher level, you might let them pick. If you're a GT teacher, you might have them use all of them instead of just picking a certain amount. Here we have the instructions written, and we have the rubric from the LEAP to show the students what their outcome should look like. We made success criteria for each. So by the students checking these off, if they have these things, they should have all the things necessary to be able to write their claim for this performance task. We also included some structures here. As you see our little note, we said that the length of the answers will be determined by the teacher. We know that on the actual LEAP, students don't have to write these huge paragraphs or essays to answer their social studies extended response. But you might want your kids to be writing more, or you might be at the point where your kids, it's a little bit more difficult for them, so you want to write them to write a little bit less. So what I came up with the use of AI, we came up with some structures, things that could possibly be in the writing for the students, a way for the ELA part of the writing to be handled here. So as you can see, that's what these are. You may use them, you don't have to use them. It was just for some of the social studies teachers don't feel so much confidence in teaching writing. This was just an extra scaffold there to help the teacher if they needed some type of support. And as you see, we have a rubric here, and we put some exemplars. Again, we want to say that we use AI to help make these exemplars. It's not perfect, but it's, hey, I'm judging this. What should a 4 look like? What should a 3 look like? What should a 2 look like? It's just a range. It's to help support you as a teacher. I always strongly suggest that you get with your other grade level teachers on your campus and maybe share out a couple. If you don't, not sure if this is a 4, if this is a 3, maybe talk amongst yourselves to help get a common ground as to what that looks like. So that on this first tab is our performance task. Now here on the second tab is the source. These are any extra sources that do not come from Bayou Bridges. We included a bunch from Bayou Bridges, and these are extra. You can use this, but you can complete the entire performance task without ever touching this. This is just extra support. Maybe you want to zoom a picture in better, so you could click on one of these. We designed a pre-writing task worksheet. This was a way to be able to make this a summative assessment. Answering the question, the kids could maybe answer the whole thing in 8 sentences, and it's hard for some of us to justify 8 sentences equaling 40 points being a summative assessment. So here we broke down how to look at a prompt, how to look at sources, how to identify what information is coming from the sources. And so we see by breaking down the prompt, the students would get 6 points. by looking at the sources and picking and explaining what's in the source that they could use to answer the prompt, they get 12 points. Here is their reasoning right here. What reasons that they're going to use, they get 6 points for their claim. And then they write the actual extended response. And so this is the scoring. The student's going to score a 4 out of 4, a 3 out of 4, a 2 out of 4, or a 1 out of 4 on their actual writing. That's going to give you a score. What they made on their pre-write plus their writing is going to be out of 40 points. This is just helps us to understand the breakdown, that we're not just grading a couple of sentences and equaling out 40 points. Our job as a social studies teacher is to help kids know what writing looks like in our social studies field. And this is just a great way to be able to break these things down. If you have an inclusion teacher, they can take their group of kids on the side too, and maybe tell them what sources to use. So this right here, again, builds scaffolds for us. Maybe you're the GT teacher and you want to say, I want you to use more than 3 sources, and you can add something else here to help meet your kids and challenge your kids. Here we did a simple 6-point formative assessment. This is when you first give the kids the prompt. I would suggest giving the kids the prompt, opening up the Bayou Bridges unit for that performance task, and what do you know about the topic? Let them kind of jot down things that they remember, just because we're going to do these performance tasks after we're finished the entire unit, after we have given the common assessments for the entire unit. So they have some background information about this. What concepts from the prompt do you need to review to answer the performance task? Maybe they don't remember what atoms did, so they have to say, I need to go look up some information about atoms. And then what sources from Bayou Bridges in class can you use to answer this prompt? Right here, the students should remember that Jefferson did the Louisiana Purchase and that Washington had some precedents. So this is where, again, we're using our recall information. So we give this to the students first before giving them the pre-writing worksheet, before giving them any of the sources. We want them just to look at the question and be able to recall the information based on all the prior teaching we had and assessments we had. I hope this helps you in your journey to teach performance tasks. Again, we did the very best we could in arranging these. We kept the topic as close to the one in the Bayou Bridges as possible, because we know that the Bayou Bridges and the LEAP work hand in hand, so that information will be on it somewhere, shape, or form. And so as you can see, when we're picking some of these sources, something to think about, you will get your common assessments and the performance task for each unit, hopefully before you start teaching the unit. So maybe you can even teach some of these sources throughout the course of the class, so they'll be more familiar to the kids. These first 2 come straight from Bayou Bridges, so they'll be like, oh yeah, I saw these before. And these next 2 don't. They would be more like a cold read type of source, but they're still dealing with information that comes from the text. Thank you so much, and have a great day.